Welcome to our Congress, Consciousness, Be Yourself. Today we are at Bernd Monecke's in his room in Berlin. Thank you for the invitation and having us over. Thank you that you are here and are taking time to listen to me. Bernd Monecke is health practitioner, Reiki teacher, and has occupied himself in the past few years with shamanism. My first question to you: what does it personally mean to you, consciousness, be yourself? Consciousness is what lives within oneself, with which we perceive. The conscious self is already included in the word. To be with consciousness. Depending where I put my focus, something develops. One of the principal rules is that where one focuses our attention or consciousness, energy is being created. Energy is manifesting itself. Something changes in accordance to our consciousness. Our consciousness has a big influence on our reality. To be oneself is for most people the path, if not the only path, to get closer to one's deepest self, which we actually are. Not only as word filler, but as a way to experience it, to live it, to be it. That is my path to get closer to my inner consciousness. And through this way, to solve the concept. That is a very important point. Is this also a way to be loyal to yourself? Yes. Here you are touching upon a very important point. To be honest to myself and also to be authentic. What I often observe in the spiritual scene, that a spiritual ego develops. And exactly here it is very important to be honest. And to discard everything with humor that one had thought to have accomplished. Thus, to try to dissolve any kind of concept that one might have of one or might think to have of one. And thus, this authenticity which gets deepened by which we get closer to the core of oneself. This is possible by means of having the will to let go and to look, but not just look, also feel. And by perceiving, also to direct our focus to the inside. How did you come to this path? On which path? Was it to choose a profession? Or to deal with alternative healing methods? Or to get to know yourself better? That is a very good question. Well, this developed very slowly. What I'm professionally doing now is the first profession that I chose. Health practitioner. Also Reiki teacher. When I was health practitioner, I became Reiki teacher. I also have been teaching as a Reiki teacher for 15 years now. Back then, I had a lot of jobs and I worked politically. And at one point, I had the feeling that I need to study something starting from the foundation. I did a big trip through South America, and there I looked how I can get closer to myself, and also to know what I want. And there I came across an acupuncturist, and I found it so interesting. With the health practitioner and the acupuncturist, I got treated. And there it made click, and I knew it was it. I felt that it was my way, my path. The Chinese medicine, the acupuncture. Basically, one can do magic with needles. It has always fascinated me how one can put something in process with acupuncture needles. Emotionally as well as physically, with just one needle. One doesn't need that much. And this fascination brought this wish to life. And then I applied for a place in a health practitioner school. And I was taken immediately, and ever since I've been on this path. I can still say today, after having started the school in the year 1990, it has been 5 years now, but theoretically it never ends, that I can still say today that this path was my vocation. I perceive my vocation as a passion, something that I love to do, with which I also love to accompany people. Also myself, I can do acupuncture with myself. That is very practical. So much to acupuncture and studying. And then I came across Reiki. Reiki fascinated me because it's a very simple healing method. One learns in a very simple way to deal with energy. And one connects oneself with earth and sky. The cosmic energy, or the Reiki energy, is a cosmic energy and an earth energy in one. One transfers this energy over the hands. And here is very important, is to be a channel. That one is a channel for the cosmic energies and the energies of the earth. And that one also rises out of one's ego. And that one lets the energy flow from one to the other. This fascinated me so much and has enriched my life and my work as health practitioner. And I have also given this to other people, and I am also happy to do it. Doctors, health practitioners, physiotherapists, that knowledge comes to me and that I can also give it to other people. And in Berlin, there are also a lot of hospitals where this is used or applied. The one thing I still have to say is that Reiki is a vehicle for primary energies. For the primary energies in oneself to get closer to the real inner self. Also here, I protest against the fixed concepts. Because Reiki has a huge range, it's always a teacher that makes the difference. That is my experience. It's very important how we learn, whether it be Reiki or other things. That is the most important. It can also scare oneself when something flows through that one doesn't know or that one doesn't control. How do you teach your client to deal with being scared? Sometimes there are questions, like when I take something up from somebody else. That is more the fear. My answer then is to tell them to become permeable. There are also techniques where we can build up security in different ways. It's also a good thing. But the most important for me is to train the permeability, which is immanent to Reiki. That is what I give to the people. To let go of the fear, because the fear holds upon us quickly. We always take up things, it can be very simple things, whether we are on the go or encountering people. One can also let go of these things. It depends on the consciousness. Here again we are at the subject of the consciousness. When my consciousness is my fear, then naturally I also attract fearful things. When one understands this and also starts paying attention to this, then also the fear goes away. In this way we can also let go, and here again we are on the subject on letting go. Letting go seems so simple, but letting go is very difficult. Yes, that's true. It's more about the fact that one fixes oneself upon something that we are. And here it is important to let go, because very often concepts are being built up that are perceived individually, that don't do any good. One of my most important life principles is to let go of what one thinks about oneself, to accept me for the person I am. That is the most important for me. To be accepted with one's fears, one's happiness, one's humor, things that people think are difficult, to be okay with these things. In this way, I can also accept the others for who they are. Is there a way to be able to accept oneself for the person who we are? Yes, this is for me a very important point. Basically, this is love for me. Who we are in the deepest consequence. Very beautifully expressed what self-love is. Yes, exactly. And with this, also the love to other people. To live with others and the way we are. You also asked me about exercises. One of my favorite exercises is an exercise I do in my group. Counseling, I call it. Many people know this as a term. As a term, I find it to be quite deceiving. From the English term. That's why I'm going to use a German word. Communication with heart. That's what I can recommend to everybody. That is to come to self-assumption by means of heart energy. Also the assumption of others. If you'd like, I can explain the setting. Yes, for sure. Thank you. It is like that. Two people sit across from each other. And there is a predetermined time. Let's say, for example, every person has 2 minutes. One can also start with a shorter period of time. It sometimes appears as a very long time. One can also start with 5 minutes. One also sets the time. And then it is also clear the time the person listens and speaks. One person listens and the other person talks. And in a special way. To listen to one's heart. And to get rid of everything that one has in our head as a judgment or as a thought. That is very important. Important is that one is open for what the other person says. That one listens with an open heart. Sometimes it's not even that easy. It's a very good exercise. One also has this restricted time, so it's also much easier to listen or to talk in this period of time. And the other person talks. And that person talks about him or herself. The relationship is very important. And here one doesn't approach oneself with you have, you are, or with criticism that one often has. But when one talks to another person, that we perceive what the other person is saying. To be in the perception of the moment. And to talk about how one feels at the moment. And that brings wonder. The other person talks about him or herself and has all the intention of the other person. In other words, a heart-to-heart communication. I also do this on a regular basis with my loved one. And these are really important minutes. We often take 10 minutes for each other. If we just had a conflict or we had a lot to do in our patchwork family and didn't have time to communicate with each other, this is a perfect tool to come to oneself and to let the emotions flow. Because these are going to surface immediately. That's also the nice part. What is often blocked in our inner self, all these emotions, the spiritual or mental input, of which we often speak. Through this communication, it is on a completely different level. All of a sudden, the emotions surface, whether one wants it or not. One starts to cry. Very important is that one lets the other person stay like that. That one doesn't say, "Oh, you poor thing," but that one lets the person show the feelings. And that one stays there and is open. And that one touches each other if necessary. And then it makes a click, and then there's a break. A few more seconds, and then the other person's turn is. This is a very nice experiment, and I can only recommend it to people. These are also known as dialogues. For sure, many people know this technique. And I often use this technique in my groups. That is something very important, to accept our emotions. We are in a culture where one doesn't allow our emotions, the real ones, authentic ones that one experiences in that very moment. It already starts with the child. Will it be let alone, or will it be consoled, or will it be just abandoned? In this way, we lose access to our own emotions. Yes, when someone comes to us, all closed up, what do you do with this person? How do you bring this person back to his or her feelings? That's a very good question. I listen, that's the most important. As therapist, I would mention to listen with open heart. And also to ask every once in a while, or just be there for this person. And then it happens. I tell the person to come in, that they tell me something, and then the tears already come. This is so nice. To be able to experience how the emotions flow in the other person. And it touches me a lot. And this is a very important tool, listening. Listening with an open heart. And sounds and tones. In the singular sessions, I usually work with acupuncture, but sometimes also with healing sounds, tones, like overtone, complex tonal sound, voices, or the thumb piano, to be able to come closer to the soul life of each person, and also to let the emotions flow. It's like a wake hypnosis. There are lots of research results about this wake hypnosis, how one can get closer to one's real emotions, to be able to let go of things. I have developed a form myself, because when one deals with difficult situations, it is sometimes helpful to include the parents into the discussion to see if the person can be helped. It's a similar concept like with systematic therapy, with family constellations. And here, tones are very helpful. To be able to let go of things, but also to fill up again. To nourish the inner child. To nourish with what it didn't have. Tones also give room to more place, so that new rooms come along. Yes, one can say it in this way. I also meditate on a regular basis with tones. That creates a connection for me in my own consciousness field to nature. I have great luck to live on the countryside and to be able to live here in Berlin. Over tones, sounds, one has a much deeper contact to the nature spirits, and through this also to myself. I feel a strong connection to nature. This is very important for me and also gives back a lot to me. It fills me up and nourishes me to be in the nature. Do you also give courses in nature? Yes, exactly. They are called the force of nature. Courses, like 3 times a year on a day in the nature. For example, on the island of Pfau, a power place between Berlin and Potsdam. For me, the beings of nature are best felt there. Everybody has a different perception, whether it be inner images or an intuition that that thing is here, or know that there is something there. I always tell that to the people. They always think one has to see something, but that's not the case. I myself am not a psychic. Everybody has these cards. And I try to encourage the people to use their talent, to be able to feel the other world around them. And the earth spirits are very important for me because all too often they are neglected. Earlier, but also today still, there are certain regions, rural areas, where earth creatures or spirits are put in strong connection to the cosmos. And there's also cooperation here. This is very important for me. And also to show people that these creatures exist. It's a giving and taking, like everywhere. The creatures were calling me at one point. That I should come to them with other people. And that's what I do now, and it's a dream. How did you come in contact with shamanism? That is a part of this shamanism that one gets into connection with nature and these creatures. Yeah, this is very different in the tradition. How open one considers it. This happened through my ex-wife, who knew an Indian, my first shamanism teacher. He is now back in America. He was here for a long period of time. He was the first one who brought the Indian summer dance to Germany. He was my first teacher. I learned a lot to contact the outside world. What I really appreciate are the rituals of the Indians. I see it as a present of our culture. It's not about copying it. We're not Indians here. We have another culture. I bring it here as a gift. Make something out of it. Relate it to your own context. In respect to what you need for yourself and for your culture. And through this, a lot of new paths were created. The sweat lodges that are applied on the ocean are very beautiful rituals to get into contact with Mother Earth. The fire element, the air element. I love the elements, and I also work a lot with the elements. The connection to nature got more profound. The rituals of shamanism, like the sun dance, caused many deep processes in me, which I very much appreciated to have gone through. I appreciate it a lot. Mission quest is something very valuable. When one works with oneself and thinks what is really essential for me. One can also put this in question in our everyday life. Here I ask myself whether it makes sense to just go into nature for 2-3 days. Yeah, of course. I think this is very important. One important spiritual question is, what do I really want? What I often give as a task to my patients is, or I find it to be the nicest, over intuitive writing. that one writes for 2 minutes without putting down the pencil. Even if one repeats the words, it's a nice exercise. To let go of one's head. That is a very essential question. Like you said, one can integrate this in our everyday life in specific phases. Nevertheless, it's a complete different deepness to get out of one's everyday life for a few days. Just to be in nature and to sleep there. Not to eat, not to drink. Which brings the body on a complete different level. Here also a lot of different levels of consciousness open up. To come back to the subject of consciousness, by means of these processes that occur. You're a health practitioner and you work with the body, but energy-wise, what does body mean to you? And mindfulness towards the body, or healing of the body? This is a good question. The body is the key to the here and now. The body always brings us into experiencing the now and here. I also use this very often. When people think a lot with the head, I give them some exercises so that they can experience their own body better. Or I give them a shiatsu massage. Acupressure, which is also based on the Chinese medicine, like the acupuncture, when I have the feeling that they need physical contact to be able to arrive in the here and now. I'm also a very physical person. I love massage. I love to be outside, to feel the earth underneath my shoes, to feel the wind, and to feel the sun. That's why we are here. To make these sensual experiences with the body that was given to us. Exactly, this is body for me. This is also my task as health practitioner, that when body and the soul don't swing anymore, most of the time these are mental blockages. Emotional blockages. Through these, emotional complications come into being. I see my task as helping other people in healing themselves, in the sense that they are in harmony again. I think this is the nicest way to express it, to be in harmony with oneself, with all levels of consciousness, that they find their middle again. All emotions are important. Fear is important that we don't do certain things. Frustration is important to establish a border between each other. The problem starts when it's too strong, when frustration is too strong or the fear is too strong. This results into physical complications, whether one is conscious about it or not. It often occurs that one swallows frustration, usually unconsciously out of conditioning. And these are one of the main causes for disease in Chinese medicine. Often accumulated frustration that one doesn't even perceive. And my task is it to help people be able to perceive themselves better and to hold a mirror up to them. To show with the body what one feels. Yes, exactly. To show what actually is here. The body is the key to the emotional things. To be able to sink into one's consciousness. Like this, one gets grip of emotions that often were unconscious, that we never had perceived. Basically, one has to take time for these things. That's the problem today. Everybody runs from A to B. Even with great exercises, yoga, great meditations, one goes from one thing to the other and doesn't even perceive exactly. One of the most important things I recommend to people is not doing anything. Just to lay down in a field or to sit on a bench and not do anything. To be able to observe oneself with the attention focused on one's body and to enjoy the moment. How important is indulgence or nutrition for you? What do you do? What do you do specially for yourself? Good question. I am convinced of the nutrition in Chinese medicine because it is very differentiated. I myself, since the age of 15, have tried out different nutrition styles. Broca diet, raw fruit and vegetables, or only sprouted things. I have noticed that these things haven't done me any good. This wasn't made for my body, but of course every body functions differently. As I studied Chinese medicine and also dealt with it intensively, I found out myself what is the right thing for me. It's a range of things. I looked at it very sophisticatedly and looked what kind of types there are. What does the person need? How does it look with me? One needs different things in winter. Different people need in summer this, other people that. That is very dependent of the type of person you are. I look at it in a very differentiated way. Also for me, I like, for example, cooked wheat. Lots of vegetables, raw or also cooked. In the Chinese medicine, it is normal that one first eats something warm. Cooked vegetables, along with carbohydrates, depending on the type. And the raw vegetables along with the meal or afterwards, because the digestion is already working and would already be prepared for the thermal cool that one eats by means of salads. For me, that's the best. The other way around doesn't work for me. I can't do it anymore. And I told the people I wouldn't make a dogma out of it. I only recommend, and the people have to decide for themselves. I tell them to try it out and see how you feel. And if you're convinced, then continue doing it. If not, then go back to how it was before or combine it. One has to find one's own path in it. This is very important for me. Instead of defining fixed concepts. Even out of the Chinese medicine, one can define certain concepts. It's important that the people make their own experiences. And by means of this, that the perception is enforced. And like this, also take over responsibility. That is the most important. That everybody takes over self-responsibility. That's why I like to mirror a lot. The people have to come upon the resolution themselves. When oneself has an aha moment, in a healing session or also in everyday life, then this has a much stronger impact, effect, than when it was said to us. That's why I try to guide the people, so that they come across themselves to the subject. And also by means of this way, the self-healing energies are strengthened through the higher focus on oneself. Like I said before, when one focuses one's attention on their inner processes and doesn't think about what's going on outside, in the sense of, oh, what do I have to do? What do I still need so that I feel better? But to be in the moment and think, how am I doing? What am I feeling at the moment? Am I enjoying it now? And to build inner rooms so that what's inside of us can also be sorted out. To make rooms of action, to guide our perception. And one of the most important things is to give oneself enough room. That's easier said than done. And in today's world, it's not easily done. There are a lot of tips and tricks, but that's a very important point. Do you have something that accompanies you, like a life motto, a thesis, or a wisdom? What my teacher Putachi told me, what he did with us, he always held a mirror to us and encouraged us to let go of all the concepts we have in ourselves. And I try to keep hold of that. When I imagine something, I just try to let loose of these concepts that I have in my head. That is also very humorous. My loved one and I laugh a lot when something strange happened, where one encounters oneself in a movie. That often happens in such relationships. I think laughing is the most healing, and humor in general, that loosens up a lot of things. Papachi is my spiritual teacher, who doesn't live anymore, but he's in here. I love him, and he lives in a way further in me, who laughs so much and dissolved so many concepts of us to get closer to what we really are. And this we can always learn in a new way, in different ways. That is, I think, what is the most important for me. To also give me this room, and also the room to give, to experience new things by ways of learning. Exactly, also this. I always see myself on level of eyes with the people that come to me. That is also very important to say, because I also learned from somebody. Each Reiki group that I guide, nature power courses, or Qigong, I'm not just a teacher, I'm also a student, where I also learn from other people. That is so nice. Also to get to know the people, how they are, what are their characteristics, to also have a mirror oneself, to give resonance, and to be able to recognize myself also in other people. Thank you very, very much for your conversation, and that we were able to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing something again from you, or to read. Thank you very much, Bernd Monecke.